Right off the bat, I have to acknowledge my surprise at the quality of this movie. If you followed development, you'll know there was a bit of, shall we say, dissatisfaction from the fanbase regarding the appearance of Sonic himself. The film was of course delayed to rectify this, however my logic at the time was that a studio that thought little enough of Sonic to give him a design liable to later become an actual sleep paralysis demon was unlikely to care enough about the property to make a good Sonic movie. Even putting that aside, I wasn't exactly sold on the initial trailer. Gangsta's Paradise is never a fitting song for Sonic regardless of the percentage of his life spent living in one, and it showcases my single least favourite scene featuring Jim Carrey's Dr. Robotnik and honestly little else I considered of note. I therefore assumed that even though Sonic was being fixed up, a painted, badly made house is still a badly made house, and the change would ultimately just make a bad movie look a little better, and therefore be less noteworthy for no longer also being nightmare fuel. Add to that the usual level of quality to be expected from video game movie adaptations, with one or two exceptions but by their virtue a nevertheless proven rule, and I assumed the film would go from being hilariously bad to simply bad at best. For this reason, I wasn't planning on seeing this movie at all, which is why this review's coming so late. But when I saw the review scores, and a few figures I follow speaking to the surprising quality of this film, I became curious. Nevertheless, it is a video game adaptation and that trailer was still in my mind, so I went into the theatre with duly tempered expectations, which may have coloured my experience, so I should mention that. I cannot remember the last time I was so pleasantly surprised and glad to be wrong. So yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. I'm probably gonna go see it again just to see how it stands up to repeat viewings, but going along for the ride that first time, I had a blast. James Marsden was a great human sidekick for Sonic. In fact, the entire cast is largely likeable unless designed not to be. Ben Schwartz is not the voice I'm used to Sonic having, I'm going mostly off my memories of playing Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 here, but he makes the role his own and after a few minutes I stopped noticing. This version of Sonic is endearingly dorky, which plays well off James Marsden's Tom Wachowski, at least I think that was how you pronounced it, who's a more straight-faced version of the same. The story is essentially a road trip movie with a chase element, and speaking of which, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention their pursuer. So here we are folks, Jim Carrey makes his big budget comeback, and who would have thought that the character he chooses to return to the big screen with would be Dr. Robotnik, and you know what else, it really works. Jim Carrey in this movie is as Jim Carrey as he's ever been. There's one particular sequence where he's dancing with his machines that felt for all the world like a segment from Carey's heyday. His legendary manic energy is spectacularly present, and he lends himself incredibly to the character of Robotnik. Welcome back, sir. The plot is nothing groundbreaking, a standard comedy road trip with the wholesome themes of togetherness you'd expect from anything Sonic, but the characters really do make it work. There are one or two nitpicks I could make, like the rampant product placement, but some of it was so blatant as to actually be funny, so I'll let some of that slide. There are road trip tropes abound with this movie, but with Sonic, so I suppose that does keep it at least somewhat fresh, even if he cribs some of the slow-motion running shtick from Quicksilver and the X-Men movies, but none of this film is badly done, even if little of it is anything too new. The redesign of Sonic was of course the right decision in my opinion. Even in this exact film, I think I would have found the original design of Sonic distracting at the very least. Bottom line, this movie put me in a good mood. By regular standards, it's a perfectly serviceable family movie with plenty of fun to be had if you're into what it does, which, by the considerably lower standards set by video game movies, is fucking great. Sonic the Hedgehog is a ton of fun and definitely worth seeing if you have any interest at all in the source material or Jim Carrey, for whom this is a great return to form. Even if you're not, but you have kids, you should definitely take them. I think they'll love it, and wouldn't bet against you being pleasantly surprised yourself. 8 out of 10. I expected to give this around 2 or 3, and I'm glad to be wrong. Could we be seeing the beginning of an era of competent video game adaptations? Only time will tell, but with Detective Pikachu last year and Sonic now, I'd say we're off to a promising start.